Welcome to the Drivable Podcast, where we discuss all things about driving and safer community transport for people with disabilities and medical conditions. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you subscribe to our channel and follow us on our social. Just look up Drive Able Podcast. We've got lots of content, lots of interviews. Go back and listen to that. There's plenty of stuff, plenty of gold. Get onto it. Brad.
Yeah. G'day, everybody. In this episode, we're talking with Rob Lukin. Rob was traveling, and what happened when he was traveling on his holidays, he was bitten by a mosquito, and his story is phenomenal, and he's one of the most positive guys I've ever met. In this interview, we discover how he uses his car to travel all over Australia and do one of his major hobbies, which is buggy kite surfing. I can't wait to get him on board for this interview. Now, just as a pre-warning, the disability impacts on his speech. So we'll do our best to caption this episode. So if you're interested and you're finding it hard to listen to on a podcast channel, make sure you come over to our YouTube channel and you'll be able to see the captions at the bottom of the page. So just search for Drive Able Podcast and put in Rob Lukin, and it'll take you to that episode. So you can look at it on YouTube. But also don't forget to check out our Facebook page where we put all the show notes. And this is one that you're going to want to get to the Facebook page because you'll want to see him doing this buggy kite surfing, I can promise you. But let's get this underway.
Yeah, well, let's get it underway. And just a quick little briefing about the speech, everybody. You might hear myself or Brad repeat some of the stuff that Rob says. This is all with his permission, and he's very happy for us to do that to help the listeners to articulate what's going on. So it's all done with pure respect and pure cooperation with the listener. So are you ready to this?
Yeah, let's do this.
Let's do it.
Driving is something many take for granted, but when someone has altered ability, then driving or getting out and about in your own car can be challenging. Driving with a disability doesn't mean you have to drive an old clapped out car with farm-like machinery, and relying on a wheelchair doesn't mean waiting for hours and then being in the back of a maxi access cab getting carsick. The Drivable Podcast is designed to introduce and explore driving aids for people with disabilities, vehicle modifications, the NDIS, research, medical guidelines, driving techniques, and much, much more. The Drivable Podcast is to help you be informed and be in control of your own independence so you can experience freedom through driving safely and reliably. I'm Ali, and with me is Brad, and together we have over 30 years of experience in disability and driving. Enough of the intros, let's get into it.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. Today we are talking with Rob Lukin. Rob, thanks very much for joining us. The first question we're going to ask you is, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your disability and how it came to be?
I used to be a professional fisherman. And then I caught viral encephalitis.
Viral encephalitis, yep.
In 1987.
1987. So you've been living with this for a while. Can you tell us what happened? Were you out fishing at the time, or what happened?
Yeah, I was out fishing, and then I went all funny, and then just
Collapsed. Yep. And you're on a boat at the time, were you, or?
Yeah, I was on a speedboat.
Yeah.
And we were a few hours away from home.
few hours away from home on a boat, and all of a sudden you collapsed.
Yeah.
And what happened after that? So so the viral encephalitis. How did that come to be? Is that
And I think I caught it from a mosquito.
from a mosquito?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
unreal. And this happened in Australia or somewhere else?
The Murray River.
Murray River.
Yeah.
All right. So here at home, anybody could have had the same thing.
It's pretty rare.
It's rare. Yeah. Yeah, I haven't heard of it before. It's really interesting.
So how does it affect you, Rob? What's viral encephalitis for our listeners?
It damaged my brainstem, and that affected all my motor functions.
Yeah.
But
So
I think it's different for everyone.
yeah, so it impacts on all of your motor functions. I'm just repeating just so people can get a clear story in case it's a bit, as you said, it impacts on your motor function. It does impact on your speech as well. So I'm not being rude, but I just wanted to repeat some things to make it a bit clearer for everybody listening in as well. For people who may be listening to this on a podcast channel, we will be doing this on YouTube as well, and we'll do our best to put up captions underneath. So if you'd like to join us on YouTube to watch this episode, then feel free to do that, and we'll do some editing and put up some captions as well. So it impacted on your motor function, including your speech, but what did it affect your arms and your legs as well?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. My right, it was similar to it. The symptoms are similar to a stroke.
But all four limbs, both arms, both legs.
Yeah. And the right side is worse.
The right side's the worst. Yeah. I've met Rob, and Rob doesn't let anything stand in his way. Rob, what you're driving at the moment?
Yeah.
What kind of is it standard car? How do you drive?
Yeah. It's a Mitsubishi Delica van.
Yep.
Mitsubishi Delica. I used to have one of those.
Yeah, very cool.
This is a 4-wheel drive. It's the Pajero, Mitsubishi Pajero, but van on top instead of a 4-wheel drive, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've got hand controls. And more recently had a lifter installed in the back to put my wheelchair in. Yeah, that's a really big help.
So the hand controls that you've got, what kind of, we'll just unpack it a bit for everybody. What hand controls do you have? Do you know the brand name of them at all, or how they work?
They're electronic.
Electronic?
Well, that's what it is.
Yep.
It's like a trigger.
Like a trigger. Yep.
We just push the brake, and there's buttons on there for indicators and stuff.
And that's all on the hand control. So the hand control's got an electronic trigger for accelerating, and you push for brake, and then there's buttons on there for your indicators and stuff like that as well. For people,
Fadio one.
it's
Yeah.
I think it's the Fadio, isn't it? The Fadio product.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you said you've got a lifter for the rear of your car to put in your wheelchair.
It can only lift 30 kilo, I think.
Okay, so it's just like a hoist that hoists the wheelchair in. Yes.
Yeah.
And
how do you transfer into the car?
yeah, good question.
I can stand and walk if I have to. If I'm hanging on to something, and I've had rails put around the side of my car, and for me to get in my driver's side, I have to walk around the front of the car.
So
Yeah, and the thing is for those at home, I actually used to own a Delica. I'm really interested to know how the hell you climb up that thing because those seats are really tall. You sit really high.
It's actually easier. It's got a step, and that's a good height for me. And actually easier for me to climb up into the car than to sit down
Oh, interesting.
in a normal car.
Wow.
I've met Rob, and I'll give a bit of an explanation. Rob has like shower rails all the way around his car.
Yeah.
Every surface of his car has a grab rail for him to hang on to, and the encephalitis that he has makes his limbs stiff, and he walks a bit like a, without being rude, Rob, but just for people's imagination, a bit like a toy robot, and the legs are stiff, and he hangs on and shuffles his way around the car, and that's why I think a higher height suits him, because he's able to get his bottom up onto the chair and then pull himself up into the car. And getting out, you just rotate your way out, Rob.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's really interesting. I kind of just want to highlight that a little bit because a Delica, when you look at it from outside, you don't think that's going to be a really practical vehicle for someone that's disabled, and often you might lean away. But shows you the bespokeness of going, okay, well, this is specifically for this person's needs. It's perfect, their body needs to work this way. So that's really cool.
And being in 1987 that you had this done, you've had this car for a while now?
Yeah. No, I had a previous one. It was the same but earlier model.
Yep.
I had that about 7 years till I killed it. And then this one I've had about 4 years.
4 years. Yep. And Rob, you've done more to your car than put in a wheelchair hoist and a set of hand controls. What else have you done? And a set of grab rails all the way around your car. The reason why we got you on is what you use your car for. So you've got your Delica. It's a 4-wheel drive van. Tell everybody what you do as in your spare time. Kite buggying. Now, so for people who don't know what this is, can you explain what kite buggying is? And just to let everybody know, in the show notes, so for people that are tuning in for the first time to the Drive Able podcast, you need to come and hit us up on the Facebook page. Just search Drive Able podcast, because that's where we put all the show notes. And we're going to put a link to a video with Rob doing kite buggy surfing. But for our listeners and people watching this through YouTube, Rob, can you explain what kite buggy surfing is?
Just the kite surfing.
Yeah.
Imagine I do it in a buggy on the beach.
On the beach.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So for people that know kite surfing, it's like a big parachute, and you get pulled along by the wind, and you go over waves and so forth and get some pretty big air. But Rob,
I don't get it.
you don't get air. No, you've got a 3-wheeled buggy, which is actually quite significant. It's a massive big buggy with 3 wheels, and you're there controlling the kite and having a whale of a time with this buggy of yours.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, anyway, steer with my feet.
Steer with your feet.
I'm only able to do that because my legs want to push.
So they push against each other, left and right.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So it's
And-
a pushing motion works on that particular like setup, I guess. That you don't pull with that, you just push, right? Yeah, okay. Were you doing this before? Were you doing anything like this before your injuries? Your disease?
No, it wasn't around, but I got sick.
So how did you get into it? How did you get into this?
I was in Port Douglas, and I'm a boat cruising on the beach, had a demo day, and I had a buggy there. And I've always wanted to do kite surfing, but of course I can't. But when I was surfing the buggy, I said, can I do that?
And what did they say? What did they say?
Why not?
Why not?
Yeah, that's awesome.
This was a hippie guy up on a beach in Port Douglas who didn't have a care about his insurance, or
No, it was a local kite school.
Yep.
It just went from there. And it just took over everything.
Took over everything. So you've got this buggy. Explain how big is this buggy? And does it fold up nice and easily into your van?
It's on a rack on the back of my van. And
So-
it went probably stick a foot above the roof.
So for
You
to
just say
try
put
and
on a
help
roof.
explain this, the two wheels. So it's a 3-wheeled buggy. The 2 wheels sit as the 2 back wheels sit as wide as the car. In fact, might even be a little bit wider than the car. And they basically sit on the rear bumper bar. And then his 3rd wheel, you winch it up. Is that how you do it, Rob?
Yeah, a friend of mine built me a rack for it. I went it with an electric drill.
So this electric drill winch, so he puts the 2 wheels up on a ramp, and then the winch pulls the 3rd wheel, the front wheel, up across, and it takes up the entire back of his van. And it's on the outside, so it just hangs off the back of his van. And
Wow.
yeah, it's absolutely massive. And like I said earlier, Rob's an adventure seeker and doesn't let anything stand in his way. And he's found all of these amazing solutions, and he drives around his local town with this big 3-wheeled buggy on the back of his van all day, every day.
Is that always there?
Can't park in his garage. It's out on the street. It's pretty significant, and people would do some sideways looks as he drives down the street. Rob, you don't just do that, and you don't just get it out and about for kite surfing, but you've decked out the rest of your van as well.
I live in there when I'm driving around.
So he lives in there when he's traveling around. You've got
a bed in the back. A fridge.
Yep. So fridge, bed, shoves his
Campfire
kite in
setup.
underneath the bed.
Yeah.
It's all packed in there, and he's got this big camper van that he takes around all over the place with this massive big kite buggy on the back of it, hanging off the back of his van, and it's quite a sight when you see this van. It's with all these tail rails around the outside. He's got the buggy hanging off the back. He's got, and then they must see you get out of the van, Rob. And what do you think people's first impression are as they see you moving around your van?
So, WTF.
Exactly.
WTF. You're right. Yep. I reckon, Rob, that was my first impression too when I met you. To be honest.
Yeah. So with the kite buggying, have you had any like incidents, I guess, where you've been stuck because you you flip over or something like that?
Heaps.
Heaps. And do you have to sort of let people know as a bit of a backup if you're going to be somewhere? Like, or what kind of emergency stuff do you have in place if you do get stuck?
I used to have one of those GPS locator things.
Oh yeah, GPS locator. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I never really worried about that.
Yeah.
You've always got yourself out of trouble.
Yeah,
You've always got
Obviously-
yourself into trouble as well, Rob.
Obviously, a very
Knowing you.
determined guy. So one interesting thing I've got to ask about this is the costs and how you funded it. Was there any help in the funding for this over the years, or is it just a self-funded thing? I'm interested about that aspect of it.
Buggy will be self-funded. We used to be sponsored by a car company. I mean, my phone. I was a team rider for a car surfing company, and they gave me a car at half price.
Yeah. Okay.
Other than that, it's all self-funded.
And the bits and pieces on your car as well, are they who's funded those? I'm assuming that quite a bit of your stuff was done before the NDIS was around. Is that right?
It's all self-funded except for the lifter.
The wheelchair lifter. Yeah.
Yeah.
In the back, because that's a recent addition, that one.
Yeah, that's the NDIS.
Even the hand control was self-funded.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where we have to applaud the NDIS and coming around, and that's what the NDIS is all about, is to assist people who can't afford it, but also because of the costs that are involved. I think from that one, it's a $5,000 starting price for that hand control as a minimum, and then you've got installation and so forth on top of that as well. So
Yeah, but that was a big jump.
yeah,
It's
it would have
the
been.
electronics. Every time you got all those whiz-bang electronic hand controls and you got to wire up all those stuff, it really adds to that price. So yeah, it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah. So Rob, we'll probably wind it up there. I really want to thank you for coming on board today and being brave enough to be on a podcast with us and talking about your adventures in your van. the reason why we do this podcast is to inspire others. And you're somebody who doesn't let any of their disabilities stand in the way. And I really thank you for coming on board.
I will just add one thing. The NDIS allow they pay someone to come with me and help me set up my account here.
Okay.
So that is something that you didn't have before. You had the NDIS now providing support workers to assist you with your adventures.
Yeah, I used to do it myself. Not never to get it too hard on my back.
Yeah,
Well, that's pretty cool. It means you can just keep kite buggying.
Yeah.
We always ask our interview people that come on board one final question. Is there something else that you use your car for other than towing your buggy around for your kite surfing and the adventures of camping and so forth in your camper van? Is there something else that you've used your car for that is something a bit unique that's not just getting from A to B?
I've been thinking about that. I don't know.
I think you do enough in your van. You travel
Well,
all around Australia.
I've been all around Australia.
Oh, really?
And 1 year I went the whole way around.
Ooh.
And every winter, except for the
COVID year. Yep.
yeah. I want to travel up to the Queensland and go buggy there.
Wow.
Like I said, this man doesn't let anything stand in his way. He's always on the road and he's always traveling all over the place. And yeah, he's an absolute gentleman. And Rob, I thank you very much for coming on and joining us. And the reason why we got you on is that this podcast is about showing that cars just aren't getting from A to B when we're talking about mods and disabilities and so forth. Driving opens up the world to so many other things. And your story of your buggying and your kite surfing and traveling all the way around Australia, thank you very much for sharing it with us and joining on us on this podcast.
Thank you. I got one last thing. How many?
There's always more questions.
No, I was just interested. How many kilometers is on your car? How many Ks? Do you know?
Not many.
Okay, I thought it would have been heaps going around Australia.
That was my previous one.
Okay. Yeah, all right. No worries. All good.
My probably it is 20 or 30,000 on average per year.
How much every year?
20 or 30,000.
20 to 30,000. Yeah, okay. Oh, that's a fair bit. Nice bit of driving. Sounds good. All right. Well, yeah, sorry for that. Thanks very much, Rob. Wrap it up there.
No worries.
See you next time.
Welcome back, everybody, and a massive shout out to Rob. Rob was very gracious in joining us for that episode, and this is the area where Ali and I break down our top 3 takeaways from the episode. And the first one that we want to mention is about how he got his disability in the first place, and that it all came through a single mosquito bite. They think it's blown my mind that somewhere as common as the Murray River in Australia can lead to a disability from a single mozzie.
Yeah, it's that to be honest, I'm still kind of trying to process that after this interview, because never really heard of anything like that. And again, we've spoken about how always these really weird stories, these little random situations, it's often not what you think, and again, mosquito bite, like that's associated with things like going to Thailand, and that's the messages you get, when you look at the government and smart traveler and be careful of that stuff. And you never even think of that stuff in your own backyard, a place like Australia. So it just shows you how sensitive we really are and how we really need to be careful.
I hate mozzie bites at the best of times, but from this point onwards, I'll be making sure that I put the AeroGuard on and making sure that I do that every time I go out and about. That's if nothing else, make sure you put AeroGuard on, everybody, when there's mozzies around.
Yeah.
The second takeaway that we want to do is the adventurous spirit that Rob has, and that he doesn't let anything stand in his way. We just want to recap on how he utilizes his vehicle, his Mitsubishi Delica, and uses that to travel around Australia, and uses it to transport his kite buggy. Like I said, make sure you go and check out the Facebook page, Drive Able Podcast, because you'll see some really cool photos and videos there, links to videos of Rob and his story, and his sense of adventure is just really exciting.
Yeah, I love everything that he was talking about in terms of that, because I guess even the company which I'm from, Mobility Engineering, we built our company on 30 years of stuff like Rob, people saying, no, you can't do this and no, you can't do that. And we always said, no, we can figure out a way. And every problem he's had, he's figured out some kind of solution, from winching that thing up onto his thing to having to travel around and figuring out ways to sleep and so on in that car. It's like he's turned this vehicle into like the solver of all of his problems, and he's not going to allow anything to get in the way, but he'll figure out the way to resolve the problem that he's facing rather than stop doing that. And I just think it's awesome. I think even that story about just rocking up at the demo day. I mean, one thing I want to say is a huge, whoever they were, shout out to that kite school who basically said, yep, give it a go. Whoever that was, what a legend. Because as he said, so many people could go, oh, insurance and no, and not this and not that. And that's the easy answer. And it's a very common answer. And probably people will go, yeah, no worries. But no, shout out to that guy. And Rob just went, bang, let's do it, and he's got in there and he's got himself. I mean, I looked at some of the videos and photos, just before we started. And I think that's scary for me to do. And I'm a pretty sort of fit guy, I was just like, how the hell is this guy doing that? It's a really tough sport to do. It's very extreme.
You have to go and check out the videos, people. Make sure you go and check out the links. If you want to take a shortcut, just go to YouTube and search Rob Lukin, and they're worthwhile. They really are. To have a look at, he repeats his story there on one of his videos there, and gets into the kite surfing a little bit more, and it's amazing stuff. It really is.
Yeah, but really that it just shows you just have that goal, walk towards it no matter what, and you'll get it, or move towards it no matter what, you get it. So I thought that's really awesome, and he really epitomizes that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the third takeaway that we want to do is a shout out to the NDIS. And he started his process before the NDIS and had to self-fund it all. And $5,000+ worth of electronic hand controls in his older Delica. But a shout out to the NDIS now that are supporting him in the next part of his journey. I just want to take time we hear a lot of negative press, Ali, about the NDIS and all the little nitty gritty stuff that can be annoying about getting funding and utilizing funding and bits and pieces like that. But it's doing good things. It really is.
Yeah, it really is. Like, look, people like Rob at these kind of ages, if without NDIS, they're forced to give up, whether they want to or not. But with NDIS, he said he's got a support worker now. He's got those lifters. Bit by bit, he can get all these bits and pieces. He wouldn't have had any of that stuff. So he just basically would have been stuck at home. So, and that's a huge, huge thing that I think just makes a huge difference to a community. You know, a community have one more active person, an active person like that person like that being out and about and being on our podcast and being out in the community, the amount of value that he can give is millions of dollars compared to what he's taken. Millions. That's my opinion. Just from a community value of just him being in there and showing people what can be done and just integrating, you know, the leadership he can provide. So, and that's all thanks to a few $1,000s from the NDIS. You know, it's really nothing in comparison to what the impact of somebody like that being out and about in our community, what it will do to the next generation of not even disabled people, but just able. I mean, I'm completely inspired by it, you know, so, and I'm like, yeah, whatever challenge is coming, if he can do it, I can do it, you know, so that's basically, yeah, it's great to have people like that out and about.
Yeah. And you touched on it there. The amount of revenue he will make from being supported to do the activities that he wants to do. What I mean by that is that when he goes on his trips around Australia, you think about every petrol station that he stops in, every kiosk, every he camps in his own van, but you know, even the caravan park, the money that is going through the Australian revenue. I don't know how to explain it, but the amount of money that he's spending and paying taxes and so forth with GST, I should say, and so forth, just from being supported at the start, he's able to do a lot more, and it goes around in circles, and he's investing more money back into the Australian economy.
Yeah, and even if he, as I said, even if he inspires one person, one other human to get up and do a little bit more like he has, then when people are sick and dying at home, they're costing the government millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So if they can extend their life by looking at him and being inspired and going, you know what, I can get out there and do that. I don't have to sit at home and rot away. Then, you know, that's money saved. That's inspiration. You know, that's health system lightened. You know, so that's what I'm saying. It's a community getting more active by having people like that out there leading it. And I think that's amazing. And that's all thanks to a small little key, which is the NDIS, you know, and when people understand that philosophy behind the NDIS and how it's more of a community scheme, I think you'll really understand how it works.
Yeah, let's leave it on that note. Thanks very much to Rob. And again, if you want to check out his videos, make sure you go over to the Drive Able podcast Facebook channel. And for this one, if you want to see it with captions at the bottom, make sure you go and search for Drive Able podcast on the YouTube channel. And yeah, check us out on multiple channels. We're on Google Podcasts, we're on Apple Podcasts, we're on Spotify. So make sure you go and check us out on all the platforms. Make sure you press that like button, smash the share button if you think that somebody else would like to listen to this episode as well. And spread the word.
Yeah. And as we say in every episode, if you have any queries about what you can do and what will work for you, get in contact with your local OT or mobility dealer and set yourself up with a trial. Trials put you in that driver's seat.
That's it. All right. Until next episode. Thanks very much for listening, everybody. And yeah, we'll see you on the next side. Thanks for listening to the Drive Able podcast with Brad Williams and Ali Akbarian. If you like what you've heard, make sure you like, rate, and subscribe. It really does make a massive difference. If you or anyone you know would like to share a story about driving with a disability, or you would like to get in contact, find the show notes, or find the resources mentioned in this episode, you can find us on Facebook. Just search @Drive Able Podcast for more information.